Jesus, I surrender all to Him. I freely give. I will ever love and trust Him in His presence.
The 1st of January 1900, Volume 3, The Circumcision of Jesus. The more the soul humiliates herself and knows herself, the closer she draws to the truth. Being very afflicted because of the privation of my highest and only good, after much waiting and waiting, finally I saw him come out from within my heart, crying, and making me understand with his eyes that he was hurting from the wound received in the circumcision. So he cried, and expected me to dry the blood that was pouring from that wound, and to sweeten the pain of the cut. I felt all compassion and confusion together, so much so that I did not dare to do it. However, drawn by love, I don't know how I found a little cloth in my hand, and I tried as much as I could to dry the blood of baby Jesus. While doing this, I felt I was all full of sin, and I thought that I was the cause of that pain of Jesus. Oh, how sorry I felt for him. I felt absorbed in that bitterness, and the blessed little baby, compassionating my miserable state, told me, the more the soul humiliates herself and knows herself, the closer she draws to the truth. And being in the truth, she tries to push herself along the path of virtues, from which she sees herself very far away. And if she sees herself on the path of virtues, immediately she realizes how much there is left for her to do, because virtues have no end. They are infinite as I am. So being in the truth, the soul always tries to perfect herself, but she will never arrive at seeing herself perfect. And this serves her, and it will make her work continuously, striving to perfect herself more, without wasting time in idleness. And I, pleased with this work, keep retouching her little by little, in order to portray my likeness in her. This is why I wanted to be circumcised, to give an example of highest humility, which rendered the very angels of heaven stunned. End of the reading. The 1st of January 1920, Volume 12. Each act that the soul does in the divine will encloses Jesus, who remains multiplied in it as in the sacramental host. Continuing in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus seemed to come out from my interior, and as I looked at him, I saw him all wet with tears, even his garments. His most holy hands were beaded with tears. What torment! I was shaken, and Jesus told me, my daughter, how wrecked will the world be? The scourges will flow more painfully than before, to the extent that I do nothing but cry over its sad lot. Then he added, my daughter, my will is weal, and whoever enters into it remains entrapped within, to the point of not being able to find a way out, and everything she does remains fixed on the eternal point and pours into the wheel of eternity. But do you know what are the garments of the soul who lives in my will? They are not of gold, but of most pure light. This garment of light will serve as mirror to show all of heaven how many acts she has done in my will. Because in each act she has done in my will, she enclosed me completely. This garment will be adorned with many mirrors, and in each mirror all of myself will appear. Therefore, from whatever side they will look at her, from behind, from the front, from the right, from the left, they will see me, multiplied for as many acts as she did in my volition. I could not give her a more beautiful garment. It will be the exclusive distinction of the souls who live in my will. I remained a little confused in hearing this, and he added, "How is it? Do you doubt? Doesn't the same happen in the sacramental hosts? If there are 1,000 hosts, there are 1,000 Jesuses, and I communicate my whole self to 1,000. And if there are 100 hosts, there are 100 Jesuses, and I can give myself only to 100. In the same way, the soul encloses me with each act done in my will, and I remain sealed inside the will of the soul. Therefore, these acts done in my will are eternal communions, the species not subject to being consumed as in the sacramental hosts. As those species are consumed, my sacramental life ends. On the other hand, in the hosts of my will, there is no flour or any other matter. The food, the substance of these hosts of my will, is my eternal will itself, united with the will of the soul, which is eternal with me. And therefore these two wills are not subject to being consumed. So what is the wonder if the whole of my person will be seen as multiplied for as many acts as she has done in my will? More so since I remained sealed in her and she as many times in me. Therefore the soul too will remain multiplied in me for as many acts as she has done in my will. These are the prodigies of my will, and this is enough to cast any doubt away from you. End of the reading. The 1st of January 1927, Volume 20. The will of the soul as a Christmas gift for baby Jesus. How all of his life was a symbol and a call of the divine will. The knowledges are the means in order to hasten the coming of the kingdom of his will. I was meditating on the old year which was setting, and the new one which was rising. My state continued in the flight of the light of the divine will, and I prayed the pretty little baby that just as the old year was dying never to be born again, he would make my will die and live no more. And as gift for the new year, he would give me his will, just as I gave him mine as gift, placing it as footstool at his tender little feet, that it might have no life but his will alone. Now while I was saying these and other things, my sweet Jesus came out from within my interior and told me, "Daughter of my will, how I love, want, and yearn that your will may end in you. Oh, how I accept your gift, how pleasing it will be for me to keep it at my feet as a soft footstool. In fact, as long as it remains in the creature, outside of its centre, which is God, the human will is hard. But when it enters once again into the centre from which it came, serving as footstool at the feet of its little baby Jesus, it becomes soft, and I use it to amuse myself. Is it not fair that being little I have my amusement, and that in the midst of so many sorrows, privations, and tears, I may hold your will to make me smile? Now you must know that one who puts an end to his will returns to the origin from which he came, and the new life, the life of life, the perennial life of my will, begins in him. See, when I came upon earth, I wanted to give many examples and similes about how I wanted the human will to end. I wanted to be born at midnight, so as to break the night of the human will with the refulgent day of mine. And even though at midnight the night continues and does not finish, it is yet the beginning of a new day. And my angels, to honour my birth, and to point out to everyone the day of my will, from midnight on, enlivened the vault of the heavens with new stars and new suns, such as to turn the night into more than daylight. This was the homage that the angels gave to my little humanity, in which dwelled the full day of the sun of my divine will, and the call of the creature into the full day of it. Still little, I submitted myself to the cruel cut of circumcision, which made me shed bitter tears for the pain. And not only to me, but with me cried my mamma and dear Saint Joseph. It was the cut of the human will that I wanted to make, so that all might let the divine will flow within that cut, and so that a broken will might have life no more, but only mine, which had flowed within that cut in order to begin its life again. Still little, I wanted to flee to Egypt. A tyrannical and iniquitous will wanted to kill me, symbol of the human will which wants to kill mine. And so I fled, in order to say to all, flee the human will if you do not want mine to be killed. My whole life was nothing other than the call of the divine will into the human. In Egypt I lived like a stranger in the midst of that people, symbol of my will, which they keep as though estranged within their midst, and symbolizing that whoever wants to live in peace and united with my will must live as though estranged to the human will. Otherwise there will always be war between the two of them, because they are two irreconcilable wills. After my exile, I returned to my fatherland, symbol of my will, which after its long exile of centuries upon centuries will return to its dear fatherland to reign in the midst of its children. And as I went through these stages in my life, I kept forming its kingdom in me, and I called it with incessant prayers, with pains and with tears, to come and reign in the midst of creatures. I returned to my fatherland, and I lived hidden and unknown. Oh, how this symbolizes the sorrow of my will, which while living in the midst of the peoples, lives unknown and hidden. And with my hiddenness I impetrated that the supreme will might be known, in order to receive the homage and the glory which are due to it. There was nothing I did which did not symbolize a sorrow of my will, the condition in which creatures put it, and the call I made in order to return its kingdom to it. And this is what I want your life to be, the continuous call of the kingdom of my will into the midst of creatures. Then after this I was going around throughout the whole creation in order to bring the heavens, the stars, the sun, the moon, the sky, in sum everything, to the feet of little baby Jesus together with me, to ask him all together that this kingdom of his will may come soon upon the earth. And in my desire I said, see, I am not the only one who is praying you, but the heavens are praying with the voices of all the stars, the sun with the voice of its light and of its heat, the sea with its murmuring. They are all praying that your will may come to reign upon earth. How can you resist listening to so many voices that pray you? They are innocent voices, voices animated by your own will, that are praying you. Now while I was saying this, my little Jesus came out from within my interior to receive the homage of all creation and to listen to their mute language. And squeezing me to himself, he told me, my daughter, the easiest means in order to hasten the coming of my will upon earth are the knowledges about it. The knowledges bring light and heat and form the prime act of God within themselves, in which the creature finds the prime act of which to model her own. If she does not find the first act, the creature does not have the virtue of forming the prime act. Therefore the acts and the things which are most necessary in order to form this kingdom would be missing. See then what one additional knowledge about my will means. By carrying the prime act of God within itself, it brings with itself a magnetic force, a powerful magnet, in order to draw the creatures to repeating the prime act of God. With its light, It will bring the disillusionment of the human will. With its heat, it will soften the hardest hearts, moving them to bend before these divine acts. And they will feel enraptured, yearning to be modelled on this act. Therefore, the more knowledges I manifest about my will, the more the kingdom of the divine fiat will hasten its coming upon earth. End of the reading. The 1st of January 1929, Volume 25. Pages of her life that will form an epoch. The gift that Jesus wants. The circumcision. Decision on the part of God. He's waiting for the decision of creatures. I was thinking about what I could offer to little baby Jesus as a gift for the first day of the year. Would it not be good to give him my will again as a little footstool at his little feet, or as an amusement in his tiny little hands? But while I was thinking about this, my little Jesus made himself seen in my interior, telling me, "My daughter, your will is already mine, nor are you the master of it any longer, having given it to me so many times. And I keep it now as a footstool, now as amusement in my hands, and now I enclose it in my heart as the most beautiful conquest, and as the secret joy that soothes my many pains. Do you want to know what I would like as gift on this day? All your acts that you have done in my will during this year. These acts will be as many suns that you will place around me. And oh, how content I will be in seeing that the little daughter of my divine volition has given me the many sons of her acts as gift. And I, in return, will give you the grace to double these sons of your acts done in my will, to give you the field to be able to offer me a gift yet more beautiful and rich." Then he added, "My daughter, each manifestation I have given you about my divine will is like a page of your life. And if you knew how many goods these pages enclose, each of them is a current between heaven and earth. It is one more sun that will shine over the heads of all. These pages will be the heralds of the celestial fatherland. They are steps that my divine volition takes in order to draw near the creatures. Therefore these manifestations about it, like pages of life, will form an epoch for the future generations, in which they will read the kingdom of my fiat, the many steps it took to come into their midst, and the new rights it gave them to make them enter again into its kingdom. My manifestations are decrees, and only when I want to give that good that I manifest, then do I move to manifest a knowledge. Therefore everything I have told you about my divine will are divine capitals that I issued. Therefore they will be the most beautiful pages of your life that will enclose the long history of my will, and braiding the history of the world will form the most beautiful epoch of all centuries. After this, I was thinking about the bitter pain that little baby Jesus suffered in the circumcision. It is only 8 days since he was born, and he submits himself to a cut so painful. And Jesus, moving in my interior, added, "My daughter, in the first epoch of his life, by sinning, Adam made a wound to his soul, through which the divine will went out, and in its place darkness, miseries, weaknesses entered, that formed the woodworm to all the goods of man. So if he has any good without my divine will, if he has any at all, they are worm-eaten, mouldy, without substance, therefore without strength and without value. And I, who love him so much, in the first days of my life down here, wanted to submit myself to the circumcision, suffering a most cruel cut, to the point of snatching my baby tears. And by this wound I opened the door to the human will, to let it enter again into mine, so that this wound of mine might heal the wound of the human will, and might enclose man once again in my divine fiat, that would remove from him the woodworm, the miseries, the weaknesses, the darkness, and by virtue of my omnipotent fiat, all of his goods would be redone and restored. Daughter, from the moment I was conceived and from the very first days of my being born, I occupied myself with the kingdom of my divine will, and with how to place it in safety in the midst of creatures. These were my sighs, my tears, my repeated sobs, my pains, all directed toward us re-establishing the kingdom of my fiat upon earth. In fact, I knew that no matter how many goods I might give him, man would never be happy, nor would he possess the fullness of goods and of sanctity, or have the insignia of his creation that constitute him king and dominator. He is always the man's servant, weak, miserable. But with my will, and by making it reign in their midst, I would give him, in one single stroke of fortune, all goods, his royal palace and his lost dominion. About 20 centuries have passed, and I have not stopped. My sighs last still, and if I have manifested to you so many knowledges about my divine will, these are nothing other than my speaking tears, and the indelible characters of my pains and sighs, that transforming into words, manifest themselves to you, to make you write on paper, with the most tender and convincing manners, what regards my divine volition, and how it wants to reign on earth as it does in heaven. Therefore, on our part, the divinity has decided with indelible and unshakable decrees that our divine will come to reign upon earth, and no one can move us. And as the sign of this, we have dispatched from heaven the army of its knowledges. If it were not so, it would not be worthwhile to place the so many values of a divine will at risk. Just as they have remained hidden to man for many centuries, so could they continue. Now we are waiting for the creatures' part, who are still temporizing from making up their minds, especially those who temporize from occupying themselves with making known the secrets of my divine will and the great good of its knowledges. Human will, how ungrateful you are. I am waiting for your decision, so that we may exchange the kiss, and I may give you the kingdom that I have prepared for you. And you temporize still? My daughter, pray and place no obstacle on your part to a good so great. That will be the greatest display of our love. End of the reading. The 1st of January 1937, Volume 34. The feast that the Queen of Heaven prepared for her Son Jesus at his birth. How love attracts, transforms, and embellishes. I was thinking about the incarnation of the Word and the excesses of love of the divinity that seemed seas that enveloping all creatures wanted to make felt how much they loved them in order to be loved in return. And investing them inside and outside, they continuously murmur without ever stopping, love, love, love. Love we give and love we want. And our Celestial Mother, feeling herself wounded by the continuous cry of the Eternal One, who gave love and wanted love, was seen all attentive in order to reciprocate her dear Son, the Incarnate Word, by her forming a surprise of love. Now at that moment the celestial infant went forth from the maternal womb, and oh how I yearned for him! And throwing himself into my arms, all in feast, he told me, "My daughter, do you know, my mamma prepared the feast for me at my birth, but do you know how? She was aware of the seas of love that descended from heaven In the descent of the eternal Word, she heard the continuous cry of God, who wanted to be loved in return, our anxieties and ardent sighs. She heard my moans in her womb. She often heard me cry and sob, and my every moan was a sea of love that was sent to every heart in order to be loved. And, not seeing me loved, she cried even to sobbing. But every tear and sob redoubled my seas of love in order to conquer creatures by way of love. But then these seas converted for me into sufferings, and I made use of the sufferings in order to convert them into other seas of love, for however many sufferings they gave me. Now my mamma wanted to make me smile at my birth and to prepare the feast for her baby son. She knew that I cannot smile if I am not loved, nor take part in any feast if love does not flow there. Therefore, loving me as true mother and possessing seas of love in virtue of my fiat, and being queen of all creation, she envelops the sky with her love, and she seals every star with, I love you, O sun, for me and for all. She envelops the sun in her sea of love, and imprints on every drop of light her, I love you, O sun. And she calls the sun to invest her creator with its light, and warming him, he would feel in every drop of light the I love you of his mamma. She invests the wind with her love, and in every breeze she seals the I love you, O sun, and then she calls it so that with its puffs she caresses him, and he would hear in every puff of wind, I love you, O sun. She envelops all the air in her seas of love, so that breathing, the breath of love of my mother would be felt. She covered all the evils with her seas of love. Every darting of the fish and the sea murmured, I love you, O my son. And the fishes darted, I love you, I love you. There was nothing she did not invest with her love. And with her empire of queen, she commanded that every one would receive her love, in order to re-give to her Jesus the love of his mamma. Therefore every bird, some trilled love, some chirped, some warbled love. Even every atom on earth was invested by her love. The breath of the beasts came to me with the I love you of my mother. The hay was invested by her love. There was nothing that I could see or touch that I did not feel the sweetness of her love. With this she prepared for me the most beautiful feast at my birth, feast all of love. It was the reciprocation of my great love that made me find my sweet mother, and it was her love that quieted my crying. It warmed me while I was frozen by the cold in the manger, also because I found in her love the love of all creatures, and for each one she kissed me, she clasped me to her heart, and she loved me with the love of mother for all her children. And I, feeling in each one her maternal love, felt myself love them as her children and as my dear brothers. My daughter, what can love, animated by an omnipotent fiat, not do? It acts as magnet and draws us in an irresistible way. It removes every dissimilarity. With its heat it transforms and confirms she whom he loves. Then it embellishes in an incredible way, that the heavens and earth feel themselves enraptured to loving her. Not to love a creature who loves us is impossible for us. All our divine power and strength are rendered impotent and weak before the conquering strength of one who loves us. Therefore, you also give me the feast that my mother gave me. Envelop the heavens and earth with your I love you, O Jesus. Do not let anything escape in which your love does not run. Make me smile, because I was not born one single time, but I am always reborn, and many times my births are without smile and without feast, and only my tears, sobs, whimpers, and a cold that makes me tremble and numbs all my members remains for me. Therefore clasp me to your heart in order to warm me with your love, and with the light of my will you will form the clothes in order to dress me. In this way you will also make the feast for me, and I will make it for you by giving you new love and new knowledge about my will. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.